Good morning. This is Reverend Carol Bedeau, privileged to serve at Westside as minister. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Sorry I can't be with you in person today. Love snow. I'm looking out my window at my home office at some beautiful snow, recording this sermon on Saturday afternoon, knowing that the roads will be way too icy for me to make it to town in the morning. There are many perks to living in the country, but being able to get into town during bad weather is not one of them. But I'm glad to be with you virtually at the very least. So I hope everyone is safe. Today we're talking about promises and resolutions. And I'd invite you to take a moment and just contemplate, what is it that you are feeling called to resolve or aspire to in the coming year? I'd like to share some reflections about what makes promises easy to keep and what makes them hard to keep. So let's take a moment to reflect on this. I know that the holiday season is a time when I personally tend to do a lot of reflecting on my priorities from the past year and also priorities for the coming one, looking back at what went well, what I accomplished last year, and how things didn't go the way I expected. And also looking forward. The holidays have a tendency, because of family visits and an emphasis on tradition, to make us more mindful of the past and how it connects to the future. And that means it tends to be a time when we set goals for ourselves or have aspirations, maybe for our family or for other groups. So the new year, which we're just entering, tends to be a time when we reflect more deeply on what we want to bring forward from the past into the future, what we want to leave behind, and maybe what we want to start afresh with. That leads to the ever well-known New Year's resolutions. So we say things like, I promise to lose weight, or be nicer to my neighbors, or eat healthier, or work less, or maybe work more, learn some new craft skill, to become something or do something different this year. And we do this with the hopes that at the end of the year, we'll feel better about ourselves. That is a really good thing, to look at ourselves and say, I would like to make improvements. There are ways I can grow. There are ways I can learn. So it's good to put energy into things we care about and maybe want to do better at. But of course, some intentions like that can also be really hard on us. How many of us have made resolutions that we couldn't fulfill? And then we felt even worse about ourselves after the fact. So, classic example, the gym membership that went underused. And then we regretted spending the money on it. The promise to eat more greens, only to just slide right back in eating all our favorite usual not greens foods. The relationship we were determined to fix that maybe just didn't change at all or even deteriorated after the commitment. We can have a tendency in New Year's to set some pretty high hopes and expectations on ourselves. And then sometimes those backfire. Sometimes we don't live up to them. So what makes for a promise to ourselves or others that will stick? What conditions are required for us to follow through on such worthy and noble intention? Now, of course, probably many of us have heard some of the basic suggestions that are made to make New Year's resolutions go better. Set realistic, smaller goals. Have accountability partners or supporters who help you. Focus on small successes and progress rather than on perfection. There's one model that actually uses the acronym SMART to describe this strategy. So the letters of the word SMART applied to resolutions are S, specific. Be specific about your goal. Don't make it vague or general. Measurable. Make it something that you can actually quantify. I'll go to the gym once a week. Achievable. Make it realistic. Make it something achievable in your actual lived experience. R, relevant. Something that's actually going to make a difference in your life. And T, time bound. Don't make a resolution that sort of stretches on indefinitely. Choose something that's like, in the next 6 months, I will. So those are good suggestions, but let's face it, even then, the odds are kind of stacked against us. when it comes to living up to these resolutions. And I've been reflecting on this, and I have some thoughts about why that's so. It seems to me that many resolutions are based in fear rather than hope or love. So think about your own intentions for a moment. The aspirations that you have right now for the coming year, are they rooted in fear of something bad happening if you don't do something different? Are they rooted in a sense of dread or anxiety or shame or disliking yourself? Many of our wishes for change are based on the idea that something bad will happen to us if we don't change our ways or shift the conditions of our lives. We want to get more fit because we fear aging or illness, or we want to change our career because we fear never having the chance to do what we love. Maybe we want to change our job because we're afraid that staying at the same income level will be disastrous for our future. We may feel desperate or determined to change a relationship because of the pain or fear that an unhealthy relationship is causing. So fear can be a really strong motivator for short-term action. It can show us what's not working, and it can show us where we need to look to make changes. But the truth of the matter is that fear is really rotten fuel for the long haul. Fear is like a spark that starts a flame, but it is not going to sustain a fire through a cold night. For that, we need hardier fuel. And it seems to me that our core UU value, love, is a much better source of sustainable energy if we really want to follow through on our promises. What would it look like to transform our intentions and purposes from fear-based ones to love-based? Now, the actual type of resolution we might make if we switch from fear to love, even the specific details of how we act on that commitment might not change very much. They might look very much the same on the surface, but they're going to feel different on the inside. We may still join the gym or go on a diet or start job hunting or buy a book on nonviolent communication. But the internal change, the shift from internal fear to love, can be quite profound. So let's take a few examples. Let's take a look at that most popular January resolution to get fit, which is a particularly cliched and popular post-holiday craze and trend. We generally eat more and in ways that are considered unhealthy during the holiday season. And it's pretty natural for us to put on some weight in the colder season anyway. So it's not surprising that this particular resolution is one of, if not the most common, that people make at the. But most of us are aware that things that come in this category have a really heavy load of social conditioning behind them. They tend to generate fear and guilt and shame, which is not a good fuel for long-term self-care. Now, that's not to say that body positivity means sanctioning behaviors that are flat out unhealthy, not at all. But for most of us, it's a little bit tricky to get to the actual love of our bodies and feeling wonderful in them to motivate our health actions. Instead, we tend to be motivated by less positive emotions. Instead, it's all the conditioning and shame and judgment from people around us or just the voices in our heads that kicks in and says, you have to fix it. You're bad. Look what you've done. It's a perfectly wonderful thing to want to care for our bodies, to want to eat nourishing and vibrant, healthy foods, to desire agility or flexibility, ease in our movement. So dieting or going to the gym or the yoga studio or walking more, any of those things might be perfectly reasonable actions to take. But we might not be focused on feeling good. We might be focused on trying to avert feeling bad. What will others think of how I look? Who will say bad things about me? Surely I'm going to get sick or sicker, lose my health and vitality. The quality of my life will be destroyed. Those kinds of thoughts about our bodies, well, they aren't very motivating. They, in fact, tend to make us feel worse, which is poor fuel for long-term change. They might motivate us in the short term, but they generally have a tendency to run out of steam in the long term. Let's take another common example for holiday resolutions, money and finances. So we might decide this year I'm going to make more or spend less. I'm going to save more. I'm going to spend more wisely. I might have all kinds of money intentions for the year, and they might all be perfectly admirable, valuable, meaningful intentions. But do they have adequate fuel to last through the year or even just through the winter season? Are our money intentions resting on a feeling of dread that we'll never get out of debt or never make enough money? Or perhaps on shame about the ways we have money or have spent money? Maybe we have regrets that are weighing us down. Maybe no matter what we have, we're dreading some kind of catastrophe that we feel we have to protect ourselves against. These kinds of negative or unpleasant feelings are, by their very nature, ones we have a tendency to want to avoid. So we find it difficult to stay focused on them for very long. And so, as a result, we have a tendency to not follow through on those resolutions. So, what would transforming, say, the money ones look like if we shifted to loving intentions? What if we said, I'm going to really take care of myself because I deserve it? What if we said, boy, saving makes me feel really good? Perhaps the first step in these kinds of shifts from fear-based motivation to love and self-care based motivation or care of others, perhaps the first step in that is loving ourselves, being nicer to ourselves. How many of your resolutions have been, if you're really honest, rooted in some kind of self-loathing or dislike of yourself? Maybe the first step is simply admitting that we are feeling bad about something, that we're afraid, that we have shame, that we have dread or loss, or that we're experiencing pain. When we feel those feelings, we tend to immediately jump to actions to try to stop the feelings. But what if instead of immediately jumping to actions to try to force the bad feelings away, what if we slowed down and took some time to reflect on the source of the feelings? Maybe there are unresolved hurts we need to revisit, unfulfilled dreams we need to grieve. Perhaps there are missed opportunities or mistakes that we need to give some airtime before we're really ready to care for ourselves and the world by changing our habits. Maybe after we've done this, then we'll be more successful at making actual practical changes. So if the first step is just slowing down and saying, why do I want to change this? What am I actually feeling? Maybe the second step is to ask ourselves a few key questions. Can I forgive myself for being a human being who is limited, who makes mistakes, can't handle everything all at once, regardless of how society tells me I should be able to master things? Can I forgive myself for not being perfect? Can I choose to love myself just the way I am? Could I get okay with me, even if I never change? Even if all the challenges I have right now stick around, could I be okay with myself? Do I need to ask for support with those challenges without feeling like I have to do it all myself? So many of our resolutions are motivated by the feeling that we have to fix ourselves and that we can't really trust others to be there for us and to meet us where we are. And here's some other really important questions. What would actually feel good to me? Not what should I do to fix myself, but what do I really feel like would be fun? What does my inner self feel like would be rich and rewarding and nurturing? Not, gosh darn it, I'm gonna fix that problem, but maybe, wow, that would be really fun and easy. And I really felt like I got a treat by doing that thing for myself. Maybe the action steps that come after that will be a little bit more sustainable, whatever area they're in money or fitness or relationships or creativity or career, maybe action steps that are motivated by things that help us feel good instead of helping us get over the fear of being shamed or hurt, maybe those will be more sustainable. And this isn't really Pollyanna-ish thinking either. This isn't just silly, fluffy, trite sort of platitudes. Our nervous systems are actually wired to respond better, relax more, and be more open to change when we are in a receptive mode. When we are in fight or flight, which I have to do it, I'm afraid something bad's going to happen, is fight or flight. When we're in a receptive, relaxed mode, we are more likely to actually make changes. That simple shift in our nervous system controls our hormones and our physiology in ways that directly impact things like our ability to lose weight or to change the foods we eat or to get rid of that brain fog or be more creative or relate to others more effectively. So all of the things we might have resolutions about actually are more successfully changed when we are in an open, receptive, caring mode. Not to mention that we're far more likely to actively continue things that are generated by joy and fun rather than those generated by fear or anxiety or aggression or shame. But don't get me wrong, determination and persistence and being willing to do things that are a little bit unpleasant is certainly important in making change and creating new healthy patterns because we do like some of those patterns that aren't the best for us. But determination can sound a little different than the way we think about it. Maybe it sounds like this. Maybe determination sounds like I'm committed to taking the best possible care of myself I can because I deserve it. Maybe it's I love feeling healthy and vibrant, so I'm going to do things that make me feel healthy and vibrant. Or I'm worthy of financial stability and I'm willing to make small, simple changes as a starting place. Or this year, I want to find ways to serve others that feel good and nurturing to me too. Or I may not be able to fix this relationship by myself, but I'm going to show up with an open mind and a loving heart and see what happens. These kinds of resolutions are more love-based. They leave room for us to feel good while making the changes. And they tell our minds, hearts, and bodies that we are inherently good and whole rather than broken. They tell us that we deserve good things rather than telling us we're unworthy and have failed and have to fix ourselves. Love-based resolutions remind us that every little step towards our own joy and peace is a positive step for everybody. Those are messages we'll probably find it easier to lean into. So I hope that this new year, we can all be a little bit more authentically caring towards ourselves and then towards one another. And I hope that we can see all the wonderful things we already bring into the world so that our resolve is not to fix our brokenness, but instead to rejoice in and amplify our inherent worth. I hope that is so for you. And I hope that is something positive that you are able to bring for yourself into the new year. Happy New Year, everyone.